Hello, and welcome to the Mommy Escape Time podcast. I'm Lauren. I'm a wife and a new mom. I came up with the idea of this podcast after struggling to find mommy groups around me when my son was born. I wanted a community of mothers I heard so many of my friends talk about when they had their children. This podcast is to help mothers like me that want a community of mothers to connect with when they have their free time. Together with my usual guest, Taryn, and other mothers, we will share our experiences, not our advice, through motherhood, and hopefully get some tips from you, the listeners. So come join us on the Mommy Escape Time podcast. Hello, and welcome to the Mommy Escape Time podcast. I am Lauren, your host, and I am here today with my husband, Brian. Hello, Brian.
Hello, Lauren.
And today we are going to talk about what we learned our first year having a child. And obviously it's very specific to us and our child. But we just wanted to talk and share with you guys kind of some stuff that we learned. Right now our son is about 14 months old, so we've survived the whole first year. And we're still happy.
Yes.
So that's good. But we'll start from the beginning, from when he was a little baby, some stuff that we learned, and we'll go from there. So let's start.
Okay.
You want me to start?
Sure.
All right. So one of the first things that I learned is that swaddling is not for every baby. I think at the hospital, they always, at the hospital, I don't want to say everything's easier, but there's always someone there to ask a question or, show you how to do it. So it's very easy because if you can't do the swaddle, they just do it for you. And they make those new swaddles that you can like Velcro your baby into that work out. But our son did not like them as much. He really tried to break out.
Yes, he was very much a squirmer early on. I think at the hospital, I mean, they're wrapping him up and they're doing it as tight as they see fit. Whereas new parents, you may not want to go as tight, or you think they're hurting them. So maybe you leave it a little bit looser, and that may contribute to the ineffectiveness. But we tried a bunch of different ways. It just wasn't his thing. But we gave it a shot and we tried it. With the basic stuff, and then some of the devices or apparatuses that you mentioned. And it turned out he really didn't need it. He was a pretty good sleeper early on anyway.
Yeah, we got this thing. I don't know what it was called, but it keeps his arms up. I don't know how to describe it.
I forgot about that
like,
thing. Sort of like
keeps it in like a goalpost. It looks like a goalpost almost,
right.
With his arms and his legs. Obviously, it's like one big sack, and his arms are up like a goalpost, and then his legs are down.
Right, and you could also wrap it one arm in, one arm out. I had a couple different ways you could do it.
Right, so there's like different versions of it. When he was tiny, we kept both arms in. For a while, and I would feed him like that. I would leave him in that to feed him as he got older, and then eventually, I don't know when the month is that you're supposed to have their arms start coming out or whatnot, or not swaddle them anymore. But whatever that time was, we bought ones where the arms would come off. So we put one arm out for a little while and then the other arm. And he looked really cute because he was like this little like muscle man, like tank
right,
top.
with no arms. Yeah. And it was, by that point it was the middle of summer anyway. And we tried not to go too crazy with the AC and just kind of keep it a little bit natural. So it was probably a little bit warm in his room. So having a little bit of freedom, I think, helped him.
All right. And he was one of those kids that as soon as he could roll over, he slept on his stomach. He did not, he's never been a back sleeper. So I think that made a big difference for him too. Do you want to have another one in mind?
Another
thought to?
Well, I think our idea early on was to keep everything simple. You get a lot of gifts from the shower, suggestions from friends and family, or you get suggestions from podcasts, people telling you what to do. But for him, we tried to keep it very simple, and I think that worked because when something wasn't working, we knew immediately what it was. So we came home and we put him right in the crib by himself right away, and we didn't do a lot of air machines and fans and humidifiers or dehumidifiers. We just said, all right, let's just start as is and see how it goes from there, and then tweak things as they come up. So I think that helped us. If we tried something and it didn't work, we knew exactly what it was, so we could stop doing that one thing and move on to something else. But there's so many great devices and products out there. I think the temptation is to buy into some of the packaging and marketing and think something's going to be a silver bullet that will make your kid sleep through the night. And I think it's best to start off simple, and that worked pretty well with us. Not to say it'll work well with every baby, but it did the trick for us.
Right. And to be fair, we did have a pretty easy baby. So we we didn't have any baby that had acid reflux. We didn't have a baby that was colicky. We didn't have anything like that. We had a very easy baby. And I think, like you said, there's a lot of stuff that comes along with a baby.
Right.
You could buy something for anything with the baby.
Sure.
And it's hard to know, especially as a new mom, because you register before you have the baby and people get you things and you think, this is what I need. And you find out maybe I didn't need all this stuff.
Sure. And from a marketing perspective, they know parents are tired. Parents are looking for just about any solution, and they're not maybe looking at the price of some of this stuff or whatever. So when you have a specific thing, like let's say your kid only sleeps about 4 hours at a time and then wakes up, if you go online and say, what do you do if your kid only sleeps 4 hours? There's a solution for that, and there's a product for that, and there's a certain formula for that, or a certain device or some sleep sack or something. So they know that when parents are tired, they're going to look for any solution. So it is tough to resist that temptation to go out and buy a product that's a solution rather than rework something you have, or even just wait it out, because it may be an issue, but it might just be a short-term, temporary, week or so phase that your child's going through. So to resist the product temptation is tough to do, but it can be helpful.
Right. And if you listen to the podcast, I did do a whole episode about products that I use the most from my baby shower. And some of them were the more expensive gifts and some of them aren't. But I think the biggest thing I probably wouldn't have gotten is actually that Click, our first car seat that we had that went into the stroller, because he only fit into it for 3 months.
Right.
So it was a lot of money that someone spent, and I mean, it was a great product and everything like that, but it was just, I wouldn't have spent that much money if I'd known we could only use it for 3 months.
Right, and that's an important point too, how much of this stuff is part of a larger system. So that seat was obviously the base, but also the stroller too, because the seat clicked into that. So you want to make sure that once you start in some sort of system of products, that you stay in that, kind of like your phones. If you're into, Apple products or whatever, you usually stick with that. But certainly all this stuff kind of works together. So you want to make sure that once you start down a product line that you stick with it.
Right. And we actually use our strollers a lot. And we have another one that's a jogging stroller that's much easier to use. And when we have to use the one that could click in your car seat, it's not as it's not as easy to use, I should say. It's just not, the steering is not as great. So it's not and I wouldn't say it's as durable as the other one. So it's definitely a part-time use, and I wouldn't have spent all that money if I had known that, especially because everyone was like, oh, well, your kid falls asleep in the car and then you just bring him inside. And our kid did not fall asleep in the car in the beginning.
And the doctors recommend that you don't let them sleep in the car seat anyway, unless they're in the car and all that stuff.
Fall asleep,
so,
right. Well, since we're talking about sleep,
Yeah.
Let's talk about that adjustment when we first had a child. I know it's different, obviously, for me than for you, because I was feeding our son exclusively in the beginning, but they tell you that you're not going to get as much sleep, and they say it, but it's kind of hard knowing that at no point one of us was not in charge of a child for every minute of the day. Yeah. Like if I was doing something, then, you had to have the child.
Sure.
So, and that included sleep almost too. Like if I was sleeping, you couldn't also always be sleeping because he wasn't sleeping at that time.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, sleep is definitely an issue for so many things. You want to make sure that at least one parent is sleeping, which is easier said than done. But,
and not always the woman is maybe not always as happy with that situation, but yes.
Right. Yeah. I mean, somebody's got to be alert. Somebody's got to know what's going on for, if you have to make a long drive and that kind of stuff, you want to make sure that somebody's, available and ready to go. So yeah, sleep is definitely an issue. I think for guys, it's a bit of a challenge because not that it makes it easier for the woman because she's already gone through pregnancy and maybe had some sleep issues. But for the guy, it's like he's sleeping okay usually through the pregnancy because it doesn't affect him a ton. And then you're right in the mix. So if you're somebody that does require a lot of sleep, it could be an adjustment for you. So that's, we've talked about it in other episodes, but when you do have friends and family around and the grandmas want to take your kid for a walk or something, even if it's just for half an hour or whatever, to catch in a quick nap, maybe the both of you at the same time, take advantage of it. Don't be afraid to ask, and don't be afraid to use that free labor that's available.
Right, because, we find, I always think it's like a burden to ask people. And then when I do it, they're all like, oh, no, yeah, let me take it.
Right.
Like, we stopped by friends' houses, and they were like, oh, you should come by more often. You can just leave them here and go do something. Sure. And it's just, you don't think of that always. So it's take advantage of the people who are willing to help you, definitely. Right. Because we had to do that early on when I had to go. Unfortunately had a funeral early on in my after my son was born, and you had to work. Right. So one of my friends, Sandy, who was actually in one of the episodes earlier on about when I broke my leg, she came and watched our son for a little bit, and that was very helpful.
Right. So. Right. And in those small blocks, it's a good way to almost kind of try somebody out, to see how they respond. If there's somebody who hasn't been around a lot of kids or something, you can give them an hour block or something like that, and they may not like it. They may never want to come back or watch him again, but it gives them a small dose. They're maybe going to have to change one diaper. They may or may not have to do a feeding, and especially early on, the child might sleep the whole time anyway. You want to find some trusted people who are close and start them off early, because if you're 3 or 4 months in and then for whatever reason you maybe have to travel or have to be away for a long segment of time, you don't want that to be the first time you leave your child with somebody else. So if you can take advantage of it early on, maybe even if you don't need to, but to have somebody come in for half an hour or to a couple hours just to kind of give it a trial run, I think it's good.
Yeah, and I think that kind of leads into the next part is everyone says, sleep when the baby sleeps, which is so much easier said than done. Right. Because if I slept when the baby slept, nothing would ever get done. Like, I would not be fed. Right. I would not be showered. I would not be anything. So I think it's finding the balance or finding the times when your baby sleeps to get that extra sleep and trying to figure out, I think the biggest thing is finding the most important things that you want to accomplish in the day and figuring out, maybe it's just one thing. Typically I would come up with one thing. Like, I tried to shower and eat every day. Especially in the beginning. Now that he's 1, it's not as big of a challenge, but in the beginning it was like, okay, what's the one other thing I'm going to do today? And I would do that, and that's it.
Right. And the whole sleep when they sleep thing, especially early on, you've got the monitor there. You can maybe just hear them naturally without the monitor. They're going to wake up. They're going to toss their turn. They might cry for 10 seconds and then fall right back asleep. So it's going to wake you up. There's no other way around that. Especially if you're some sort of light sleeper, they're going to wake you up, or you're even going to be thinking about it or stressing about it as you sleep. So, like you said, it's easier said than done. But you want to take advantage of those times when you have the help and just sleep when you can.
Right. And I think our son being in his crib right away helped, because I never would have slept. Every time he made a noise, I would have been awake trying to figure out, is he okay? Is he okay? Right. So I think that worked out a lot better, just having the monitor.
Right. And then the baby monitor is good for a little while, but then after a while, you'll realize you don't need to have the audio on. If your kid waking up screaming, you're going to know it. So it's great for the visual to check in maybe before you go to sleep or in the middle of the night if there's some sort of prolonged issue with your child to do the visual maybe without walking in. But the audio, if you have it up high, your child's going to wake you up. There's no other way around it. So don't be afraid to turn the volume down or even off a little bit later on, because trust me, when your child wakes up, you'll hear him or her.
We wake up all the time. Yeah.
No doubt about it.
Yeah. And then we had a unique situation that we kind of came up with before our child was born, an idea that the grandmothers would come and take turns watching our son, because being a teacher, I mean, we had our child at the end of April, so I just took off the rest of the school year and then wasn't going to go back until August, which is what I did. And my mom came for August. She unexpectedly came earlier in August because I broke my leg, but she came for August and September, and she stayed with us and watched our son while we both went to work. And then in October, November, your mom came and stayed with us. And then in December, my mom came back. And we only needed her until the winter break, because then I had off. So then I could watch our son, obviously, over the break. And then he didn't start daycare until January.
Yep. Yeah, that worked out very well. And the mothers did a good job. So, and then I think he liked it. And it's good for them, obviously, too, because they're, obviously, no matter how much time they get, they're always going to complain that they never see their grandchildren enough. So you can always say, well, you had those 2 months or months and a half the first year. So, it gives them something to do if they're not, if they're not working. So we're lucky we had that resource.
And I think it was just like a nice bond that, I mean, even all of us made with both of our mothers and our child. And I mean, it just helped out so much, because even just going back to work, it can be hard. It was hard to figure out how I was going to cook and, get ready for my own day for work. So I think that helped to have just an extra set of hands to watch him, so that it wasn't just me coming home and watching him.
Right. And I think we got lucky with our schedules too, because, I have a regular, 9 to 5 type job, whereas yours, you like to go in a little bit earlier for teaching and then leave a little bit earlier. So you're leaving at 2:30 and you're home by maybe 3 o'clock, and I'm going in at 8:30, 9. So wasn't necessarily like a full day. They didn't have to stay with child for 8 hours. So I think that helped too, because remember, you've got grandparents who are a little older and they're not used to chasing around or taking care of a baby all day. So it can be stressful on them too. So again, you want to make sure they're getting the sleep they need and getting their food, and they're staying at a house that's not their own, and all that type of adjustments. It's definitely a plus. It's definitely worth doing, but you want to stay in tune to that too, and make sure that their energy levels and their alertness are okay, because the last thing you need is them having a health issue or falling asleep on the job in the middle of the day. So it's just something else to keep an eye on.
Right. But it was definitely a positive.
Definitely positive.
I definitely was happy with that. So then when we started for daycare in the new year, it was on my way to work. So, I mean, our son is an early bird. He's up. So I bring him when I would go to work, and I think he liked being like one of the first kids there also.
Right.
And I think we kind of picked this place. It was a new place. They said they went outside a lot, and it just seemed like, it was going to be a nice small place.
Right, and they had multiple locations, and so this was opening a newer location, but they had a few other locations in the state. So so we were trusting of a new facility, where normally we might be a little bit tougher to do that if it's just somebody opening out of the blue. So so at least they had the program at other locations that they could walk us through. I think we were there even before the building was totally finished, right? We originally looked at the place.
Some of the rooms weren't done, yeah.
So we had been there before they had age groups that weren't filled out yet. So, but yeah, we liked it early on, and they did a good job.
Right. And then I would say like 2 months in, it just wasn't the right place for our son.
Yeah, it was, I guess, what you'd consider a high-end place. It was very, and now you're getting the other side of it, because it was more a little bit more corporate, a little more almost like a chain. They had very specific policies and procedures, so there wasn't a lot of leeway where a smaller place, whoever's in charge might give a little bit of leeway on something. We had some issues with some of the packaging of our food and what we were doing, and just little nitpicky things like that. I understand they have to follow certain rules and policies and procedures, but it was a little bit more than we were looking for, especially when we compared it to the place we ultimately ended up at.
Right. And I think that the second place, what I liked, the place that he's at now, I should say. I mean, we changed daycares. I mean, it was a Monday that I started to look, and Wednesday or Thursday he was in a new place.
Right. We both went and checked it out, and it was actually the place that you had gone.
Yes.
A few years ago. So,
as a child.
Yeah. So they a little bit looser. You know, it's been there forever, and
at least as old as I am.
Right. And some of their rules, they were a little bit more relaxed on. The things they need to be strict about, they were strict on. Food and sending children home with a certain temperature. But the other place, I mean, for example, you'd pick them up before 3 sometimes, and I think once they called it, a little bit after 2 and said, your kid's sick, he's got to go home, and he was going to be picked up in like half an hour anyway. So I got there basically like 15 minutes before. So little things like that are just common sense that the new place had, whereas the old one they were a little too strict.
Right, and I think what I like about the new one is the people that work there have been working there for a long time, and they just love kids, and that's kind of what you're looking for. You want someone who's going to love your kids, not someone who's going to say, today they worked on their fine motor skills by playing
Right.
with this ball and their friend. I think we were more looking for our son's very social. He likes being around other kids. So I think we just wanted him to be in a place, and I think a smaller place also.
Right.
There were... the other place, it was, today he's in this room, today he's in that room.
Right,
and
that was the issue too.
There's just a lot of movement, and we just wanted a little more consistency. And he's he did a wonderful job, I would say.
Yeah, he went from being the youngest person in that section, or close to the youngest, to being one of the oldest. So he he kind of liked the additional responsibility of being an older child.
Yeah, and he's really cute with the younger, like the babies.
Yeah.
He'll go over and like rock the little rockers that they're in and stuff like that. So that's cute. I like that. And it's fun to see. And they do a lot of cute artwork. And we clearly know he's not doing any of the artwork himself.
Right. And the other place had a traveling artist that came through, once every couple weeks or something, and did these more elaborate type products. And now we're getting a turkey that's his handprint.
Right.
And then we get a bunny that's his handprint. And then, but it's fine.
Right. Like, we want the things that, I don't want to say he's actually making, but just make more sense. Like, I don't need a bunch of adults making things all day long for us. And there's nothing I'd ever expected. I actually kind of like it. The new place doesn't do pictures during the day. I mean, on an occasion they might send me a picture here or there, but I think I actually I'm not as concerned about him not having a picture. And it's so funny. I don't even look at his update. They give a little paper update when you leave every day, and I'm like, I don't.
Yeah, I mean, you can tell just by his mood how you pick him up. I mean, you can tell if he ate or didn't eat, or how he slept. I mean, you get the rhythm. You understand if he had a good day or bad day. You can tell.
Right. And I would say the hardest thing that I've had to deal with is I don't even like packing my own lunch, and now I have to we pack his breakfast and lunch every day. And it's hard. A little bit of it is a little egotistical. Like, I'm going to be judged. These people are going to see what I'm feeding my child. Are they going to say oh, she's not giving enough variety, or, oh, she's packing this. Oh, this must have taken 1 minute for her. Or us, sorry. But I kind of got to, well, actually, when we moved to the new daycare that he's at now, which I'm much happier with, I didn't think about it as much.
Right.
It
doesn't seem like that kind of place. It's certainly not a judgy environment. I mean,
no.
They've seen it all. So,
right.
And they know you're a teacher, and they have other teachers there. So I think that helps a little bit. Right.
And I think they almost kind of helped me. They were like, oh, chop up his food like this so he can start eating it with his hands. And they taught him to eat with his hands in a week.
Yeah.
So.
I think a lot of times those people, even though they're with him so much. They're more likely to tell you he's ready to do something than maybe you are, because you're comfortable with this type of food, and he's sleeping and he's eating and everything's fine. And then they kind of poke you and say, you know what, he's ready to, pare back on the bottle a little bit, or he's ready to, try maybe this food that we haven't seen yet, but he seemed interested when one of his friends had it. So.
And he stole it off their plate.
Right. So yeah, I think they do a good job of pushing him and pushing us too.
Right. And I think that's helpful. Like, they have experience. It's not like they just have a degree and they, went to school for this. I think sometimes experience, especially with young kids, is very helpful, because they've seen different things throughout the years. And this has been an established place, like we said, for a long time. And I think that makes a difference. And it's like halfway in between, like a home daycare and daycare. Like, I don't even.
Yeah, it does have that feeling, because the owner lives on the same property, not in the same building. So it does kind of have that feeling of a home daycare, although it's not. Right.
And then there's one room for each level of kids. And I like how they're levels.
Yeah. And and their little swing doors in between, and they can, at some point during the day, they let them mingle a little bit and let the young kids play with the old kids and stuff. So
so I think that's kind of nice, having that part of it.
Yeah.
Anything else that you can think of that you want to bring up?
Oh, for a first year?
Yeah.
No, I think that's pretty good. We talked about our time. We talked about work. We talked about the daycare. I think the overall theme is just to keep it simple and not go too crazy on products, and just see what works with your kid, because every kid's a little bit different.
Right. And I think moving to the new daycare helped us a lot, because I see that's when we started to actually stay awake after he would go to sleep and do things. And before, I think we were just always so tired that it was like when we put him to bed, we were like, let's just go to bed.
Right. And that's a good point too. I think if you're a parent who is working a lot, or don't have the time to spend with your child on, maybe when they're a little bit older, but music and art and that type of stuff, then maybe you need a little bit higher end daycare that's going to provide that stuff on site. But especially Lauren being a teacher, I mean, she's home and ready to go at 3:00, so she's not picking up a tired baby at 6:00 at night. She still wants to do things with him. So she doesn't necessarily need him to be doing all those activities during the day, because he's going to have some time from 3 to 5, where some other kids might not.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I'm very lucky that I have a good work hour schedule that works like that.
Yeah. And with that original daycare, it got to the point where it was starting to become a stress issue, and we've got everybody's got enough to deal with. But if you start thinking about the daycare and what's going on there during the day, or if for whatever reason you're not comfortable with your daycare, even if it's completely irrational, you do have to make a switch, because that's part of, you don't want to occupy your brain on that kind of stuff that's not helpful. So if you have to make a switch like that, don't be afraid to do it, and don't take too long.
Yeah, I mean, I had that instinct, and I just wanted that change, so that was good.
Right.
So. All right, so that will wrap up our episode of our thoughts of the first year. If you want to follow on Instagram, you can do that. Facebook too, Mommy Escape Time. And if you want to listen to this on our website, again, Mommy Escape Time. So thank you for listening, and we will see you next week. Bye.
You're welcome.
Thanks for coming on, Brian.
You're welcome.
All right, thank you. Bye.